Hi gorgeous lights, welcome to the fourth video about complex soul agreements and the agreements that you have with people around you. Now, Spirit has actually asked me to concentrate on these because we are in relationship energy, and the more that we realise our role in things, other people's roles and things, and the more that we come into forgiveness and love, the quicker that we can actually clear these understandings and some of the more complex agreements that play out where we feel hurt and betrayed and kind of let down. And one of those things that they're talking about and have been talking about all afternoon to me as well, is where we can feel incredibly, you know that in the last videos I've talked about my threads as being abandonment, rejection and betrayal. So where you can feel incredibly betrayed that life is not bringing you what you would actually like to have. So when Spirit actually says, be the love that you wish that you would receive, you can understand why that ties into the abandonment, rejection and betrayal thread pathways that some people have. Now, it's really, really hard, and it came up again today in a discussion with somebody, to identify when you're feeling really picked on by the universe, where your actual block is or where your particular blocks are. So we kind of, it's a wood for the trees scenario when it's right here, but we have an inability to see what's driving it or what's actually putting it into consideration for us. And it works a little bit this way as well, because, if you've got a complex soul agreement and that beautiful, beautiful soul out of your soul group has decided to be one of your wisest teachers by taking one of the most difficult roles around you, then you're invested into it because you actually love either that family member, partner, sibling, whatever, child, because you love them so much, you're really invested into it. And that's the reason why we do complex soul agreements within family environments, is because that's our biggest challenge, is to bring it back to love in the face of other people's behaviour that's all the way around us. Now, I just explained this to one of my children last night, that if you cut short a soul agreement, so say you cut that person out of your life, then the universe just sends another one. And if you cut that one out, then they send another one, because basically whatever we don't heal in ourselves and understanding and wisdom means that the universe makes it louder. So if we ignore it there, it gets louder over there. Ignore it there, it gets louder over there. So, in these soul agreements, the reasons why they're complex is that we have players that if one player steps out, or if we remove one player, then there is another player going to come in and take that place. Why? For your ultimate good, about who you're learning to be in yourself and your soul level evolution, because that's what it's all about. And don't get me wrong, like I did have someone say this to me the other day, this is so unfair to me. When am I going to see that person get their karmic retribution or judgment? And I'm like, whoa, okay, for a start, every soul that's having this experience or joining you in your complex soul experiences will be getting their own multi-level learning as well, and they will get it in whatever format that is required for their soul level learning. So I think sometimes the human part of us really comes out to play here, where we want someone to feel as badly as what we felt, or be impacted as badly as what we felt. And again, underneath that is a challenge to bring it into forgiveness and love and appreciation and gratitude, which are the big ones, for what the souls are actually bringing towards us as well. And quite often when I'm in a funk about something, or I feel personally betrayed or rejected by somebody's behaviour, and it's not as bad now because I've worked through it to a degree, and you need to come into understanding, is as quick as anything, if something happens that just throws me, I now sit down and look at all the ways that behaviour that person did, not how it hurt me, but the gift. So I say thank you for the gift that you've given me, and then I apply gratitude. So I thank them for illuminating for me where I've got a trigger point or how this trigger point is actually impacting me. And then what I do is I write down all the reasons why I'm so grateful they did what they did, and then I empower myself by seeing where it's serving me in my highest good, in my highest evolution, from what I gained from that experience and how I gained it as well. And look, I've had years of practice. It's taken me years to be able to work with the guides, to be able to actually feel empowered after some of these things. And the one thing I'd said to someone the other day, and I 100% am going to hold to this, yes, you do have to grieve a portion of it not being in the expectation that you actually had, that you wanted it to be. Because when we have a vested interest in the outcome and we want the outcome to be 100% the way that we want it to be, well, that's us just trying to control it. And at the end of the day, the universe always has your back. It is basically, you know, in tune with the bigger picture, and how in the bigger picture, the relationship that you didn't turn out the way that you wanted to, the collaboration with an in-law that you really wanted that didn't turn out the way that you did, something you're doing with a sibling, and all those disappointments, if you like, that you that we can feel so personally betrayed from, or abandoned by, or rejected by. In the big picture, you gain from it. It's just from our human perspective, which of course human perspectives are very, very limited. We don't have the luxury of the human, the universal understanding. We're channeling it through our limited Play-Doh. We won't see what's bigger, brighter, better for us. Part of the human brain really likes to know what's happening and where do I have control over this situation and how do I get it to be in my best interest. Well, one of the things that throws people an awful lot is, as soon as you're in a relationship dynamic, doesn't matter what sort of relationship dynamic it is, you have no control over that person. You have no control over how that person thinks. You have no control over what their soul level learning is. You only have a period of time for an experience with each other that is going to be beneficial to the both of you. And don't get me wrong, you know, if we think, oh, that person came out of that and they feel really smug and really, really vindicated, well, yeah, but in a different experience, they will actually have to have that complex understanding in their format, in their way, and there'll be another player that rocks up to give it to them in a different format as well. We're here for multi-level experiences. Now, when we get caught up in loop cycles where it loops and loops and loops, and I may be slightly reiterating what came through in the other video as well, but to undo karmic learning, firstly you have to acknowledge it, and a really, really good way of acknowledging it is think about, as I probably mentioned in the other video, think about all the other times where you have felt like this before. So as human beings, we get very, very caught up in that person, Joe, whatever name, he did this to me, and he affected me, and I would not have felt this way unless he didn't do this. No, you're supposed to feel whatever you were supposed to feel, and it was triggered in you, and you can say human-wise because of that behaviour, 100%, but it triggered in you for you to illuminate where your unhealed aspects are as well. So, you know, if you looked at it from, you know, cut it down into human terms and looked at it from, you know, maybe in an astrology point of view, if you go and find out what your moon sign is, that experiences to do with whatever astrological sign it is, as your experiences are to do with the shadow aspect of yourself, which is in your moon chart. And, you know, if like, I'll use my moon chart because it gives you an understanding. So, you know, rising can be how other people see you. Your sign of Sagittarius can be, you know, how you turn up on a daily basis. But the moon, which is Scorpio moon, which is what I have, is I need to wade through my emotional intensity at a soul level to come to emotional equilibrium and not be taken out at a soul level by the waves of emotions that actually flows through me. So the agreements that I have with the people around me is to trigger that side of my moon, that element, to actually help me to actually empower myself into the best version of myself while I'm on the earth plane. Now, this is an evolutionary journey, because the first thing people say to me, and it's such human behaviour and I absolutely love it, is, well, how long is this going to go on for? And I'm like, well, you're in an evolutionary journey for the whole of your lifetime. The human brain will look for the negativity in it straight away, and it is a little bit of rewiring into positivity, as I said, to have a look at where it actually serves you and how it's serving you. So, there's been instances in some of the lives that I've actually had before where I've actually we've gone back and looked at it, I've gone, oh my gosh, I'm learning from a distance because I'm not in that life anymore. It's just so clear now for me to actually look at it, where I have basically, there's been very many lives where I've actually been an oracle or a seer, and actually been used and utilised for that gift or that aspect of myself, much to my frustration. And one of the lives that I really have is remembering having taken my family actually taken off me, and basically kind of kept and chained to basically be an oracle for someone so that they could actually know what was coming up, what wars were coming up, and that sort of thing. And having this absolute, complete and utter longing for freedom and my family and everything, but really being forced to actually utilise this gift. And so part of the learning to do with that still ties in with abandonment and rejection and betrayal. So I can see where I've carried it through as a familiar pattern. To what end? To actually heal the aspect where I am abandoning myself by surrendering to somebody else's needs, or in whatever way, shape or form. So it's really interesting to notice these loops, if you like. They just continue until you actually learn it, surrender to it, and then actively work in undoing the karmic learning by actually giving yourself permission to say, yep, here's my cycle, here's my pattern. And I have a saying that I actually say to my clients, okay, great, now that you've actually identified it, I want you to think every time it comes up, the old me, loop cycle pattern, the old me would behave this way, because now you've identified it, but the new me will actually consciously choose to do it in a different way, and then you start to unravel it in the instances where the triggering instance is of the unhealed aspect minimises because you're actively working it and you're coming into an empowerment space to actually deal with it. Now, the thing that I've noticed the most, and I work with people a lot you realise this, is we live in an instant gratification society that says, oh, I've got a sore throat, so I'm going to get a pill or something and it will fix it. Now, with karmic learning, you're going to have to understand this. You're going to get really frustrated with yourself along the way. You're going to go, why do I have to deal with it? Because until you actually get used to dealing with undoing karmic loops and acknowledgement of what your behaviour, what's actually going on, who's bringing what to the table with you, you're not going to see where it's actually empowering you. And it is empowering you. Because as we start healing that layer, of course the instances get less and less as we come into unifying within ourselves, beyond the learning that we've decided that we're doing, and we come into emotional equilibrium, and you really notice it, because then when something actually happens, you actually just go, oh my word, that just didn't trigger me at all. I'm not cured or whatever, but there is processes, and one of the things that we don't like in our instant gratification society is surrendering to the process, that what we need to do that says, okay, it's an onion, right? I've taken off that layer. Now I'll just have to tootle along till I find where the next layer is and the next layer is. Now you can keep delayering, and people say to me, oh, how do I get this nailed? Can I do a workshop on it and just peel all the layers off? You're pretty complex in your own soul journey and what you've agreed to do with your own soul. So as you go along, you're going to find the next one, and you're going to find the next one. And it's a process of evolution. And I love my grandfather's favourite saying at the moment, which is he shows me him in spirit throwing a fish onto the land and going, yep, Jack, it's not grown legs yet, because evolution happens over a period of time. So before you screw up your face and go, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this, you're watching these videos. So you're already starting, you're already aware, and you're already in your own way, and you're already wanting to actually have this information that empowers you, seriously, empowers you to actually get to a point where you're building connections with people that are based on unification, empathy, understanding, and not the karmic learnings, soul aspect learnings that are intense. So it's really, really important for you to actually understand that. Now, I did go back to a life, last night actually. I thought, I'm just going to cruise back and I'm just going to see one of the lies where I told myself that I was in my happiest life. So I found this life where basically I lived in a monastery, and for very, very long periods of time in this monastery, and it was quite a high up monastery because the altitude was quite high and it was very rocky mountains, but we spent a lot of time in solitude, and you spend a lot of time without speaking and just really being in the mind, in the body, in the breathing, that sort of thing. And I said, what do I like the most about this life? And it was the solitude. And then I went, no, there's something underneath this. I've got to get to the bottom of what's actually underneath this. Well, of course, there was abandonment, rejection and betrayal, because I had consciously chosen to take myself away from people that could let me down or abandon me or betray me. And in that lifetime it was caused by loss. I had lost a parent very young when I was about 10 years old, been picked up by them, put in the monastery as an orphan, and then decided it was just the easiest thing to do. So basically in that lifetime that I thought was particularly happy, I was actually and it was a happy life, don't get me wrong. I loved the routine, I loved the stability of it, I loved the avoidance of the dramas, so I thought. Then I looked at the dynamics that I actually had with the other monks, and I spotted my son, one of them that I have now in the monastery, and I thought, this is why we argue black and blue. And then I also spotted my own mum, I spotted my sibling, and I'm like, here we are again. We are tracking back and having experiences, and I thought that this was, a wonderful life, and it was very cathartic and all those things. But the little byplays of the relationships within this, the monastery, within the dynamic, were actually all centred around abandonment, rejection and betrayal. And there was a fourth one in there as well, which was judgment. So I kept doing cross-comparison because I was very insecure and didn't believe that I was lovable because I'd lost everyone that I'd loved. These little play-outs of abandonment, rejection, betrayal and judgment would play out within this environment as well. And so by the time that I died in the monastery, and I actually died of pneumonia, I actually, left relatively peacefully, but I also recognised that I had just repeated soul level complex threads with the same parties that I'm with now, just to a lesser degree, because in that lifetime I felt more vulnerable to those emotions, whereas in this, and it was just as pertinent and poignant, it was more the feeling of they weren't quite family or they weren't quite connected to me, so it had a degree of separation. So that's a type of subtlety that I'm talking about that comes up in karmic learning. So in order to identify it, you have to come into conscious awareness and practicing conscious awareness. And when you're working in conscious awareness as well, it means that you are able to actually identify what's yours. You can identify when someone is actually saying, I'm sick and tired of people that let me down and annoy me, that they're actually talking about themselves letting people down and being annoyed by their own selves. There's a lot of projections that go on the earth plane right at the moment as well, and as people actually just voicing the way that they behave and the way that they do. And when you're consciously aware, you can actually recognise none of that's your stuff. What's your stuff is what keeps triggering you, and what's their stuff is their stuff to deal with, and can come into a degree of harmony to do with it as you're actually looking at these agreements that you actually have with other people. Now, when you get to spaces where you can do that conscious recognition, you're suddenly out of a petty energy or an energy that's an intense learning energy, and it gives you a little bit more equilibrium as well. So the self-empowerment is actually worth it. It's really, really worth it. Now, I did have a discussion also with my youngest one. He remembers quite a few incarnations, and he will actually say to me, well, that was a pointless incarnation. There is no pointless incarnation. You could have, you might have heard me talking with him. The incarnation, the value of it at a soul level can be looked at, and I've watched people go through the Akashic records in their own lifetimes and pick up one tiny small event. Like, I'll use an example, like I think I might have seen one of the videos in my life as a peasant. I stole a roll and I fell and I hit my head on a mounting block. And I remember studying upstairs after that life, each emotion I had felt during that lifetime, the frustration, the resentment, the entitlement, the utter poverty, and looking at the value and the gratitude of what I've actually learned from that. So the smallest event at a soul level that you just dismiss and go, oh, that was just a coincidence or whatever, these have tremendous merit to you at a soul level, which is why we keep incarnating. So, you know, if you come across a person you think they've got the perfect life, nothing ever happens to them, well, maybe they just actually had a life where they're supposed to learn stuff at this level, and you're having a life where you're learning stuff a little bit more at this level as well. So it comes down to our soul level curiosity for growth, that we incorporate all these aspects and these interwoven complex agreements with other souls, so that we can actually get the best out of the experience as well. You can have a whole lifetime running away from your experiences and feel very ripped off with their life, but there's still value in it, because you're still going to evaluate the could'ves, the should'ves, the would'ves, and agree with another soul to come back and do that experience again where it's a little bit more in depth. So please understand that you need to be congratulating yourself for the learning that you're actually doing, and looking at a starting point, if you like, for how you actually are looking at where these soul aspects intertwine, what you're learning, what you're growing with, and how to actually identify it so you can move forward into the self-empowerment as well. So it's food for thought, guys. Are just saying as well, is that you've already got curiosity, so start working with there's one thing the Spirit have been saying to me lately. It's all very well looking at the spiritual aspect, what you've designed on your life path, what you're here to do, all of those sort of things, and the connection between your soul and your human experience, but you're fully present in your human experience. So right now, in the now, as you're adjusting things, you can seriously empower yourself, and raise collective consciousness at the same time, by actually looking and bringing yourself into mindfulness, bringing yourself into the noticing, bringing yourself into the self-empowerment, bringing yourself into the noticing. So these are gifts that you give back to yourself simply by being here as well. This is seriously one of the most fascinating times to be on the planet, with the amount of growth that is going on, the amount of activations of souls waking up to what their purpose is, and also the pivotal changes that are going on the earth plane right at the moment as well. We've got some intensity coming out before May, and it's certainly through January, February, March, there is going to be some massive illuminations at that global, governmental, and even internal level, where the epiphanies are just going to come thick and fast. So now is the perfect time to start your process, because half of you are already in it and you're wondering why things are actually going pear-shaped in your life, or people are being so pedantic, or you suddenly can't stand that person anymore and you're over them, is because a lot of the soul level agreements are being pushed and pushed and pushed to clear, to sort out, so that we can come into this new beginnings and start heading into this unified energy that's starting to roll forward. But we have to unify in here and with each other before we can unify into better community understanding, all those sort of things as well. So welcome to such a fascinating time, and congratulations on the steps that you're taking to actually empower yourself. Take care of you, as ever I've said, and I've said it in the other videos. If you've got a block or you recognise you've got a block, feel free to get in contact with me. We'll do a session and look at how we can empower you forward into the better version of the life that you're actually wanting to have on the earth plane, and what your purpose is, what you're here to do, what you're here to undo, unlearn and heal. So take care of you.